Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadhaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabhadi Prachatya Deshatarinem. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindham. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining. Anupama Radhika Mataji, Aravind Prabhu, Hamsini Mataji, Ian Prabhu, Kanika Neelala Mataji, Kiran Kohli Mataji, Lakshman Prabhu. Oh, good to see you. Prema Bhakti and our Shankar Prabhu, Meena Jetani Mataji. Yes, Mataji, please. You are muted.
Prabhuji, chapter 14, yeah? Till what?
Yes.
What text?
What is the question? Chapter 14, yes. So you want to read?
I thought you were asking me to read.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so raise your hands, whoever wants to read. If you raise your hands, I know that you are in a position to read, and then I don't embarrass you in that way. Yes, so we'll go with our a very enthusiastic devotee, Meena Jetani Mataji. We will try and read the first 13 verses. Good to see you, Padma Mataji. I hope you're well. Very, very happy to have you back on the Srimad Bhagavatam classes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 14, the story of King Vena. Text 1, translation. The great sage Maitreya continued. O great hero Vidura, the great sages headed by Bhrigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated. Text 2. The great sages then called for the Queen Mother, Sunitha, and with her permission, they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this. Text 3. It was already known that Vena was very severe and cruel. Therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there as rats hide themselves from snakes. Text 4, translation. When the king ascended to the throne, he became all-powerful with 8 kinds of opulences. Consequently, he became too proud. By virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Thus, he began to insult great personalities. Text 5. When he became overly blind due to his opulences, King Vena mounted a chariot and, like an uncontrolled elephant, began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. Text 6. What was committed by King Vena many years ago is at present being carried out by atheistic governments all over the world. The world situation is so tense that at any moment, governments may issue declarations to stop religious rituals. Eventually, the whole situation...
Are you reading the purport?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just got so carried away.
I was wondering. I read that purport many times. I was wondering.
Sorry. Okay. So text 6 translation. All the choice-born Brahmanas were forbidden henceforth to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus, King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Text 7. Therefore, all the great sages assembled together and, after observing cruel Vena's atrocities, concluded that a great danger and catastrophe was approaching the people of the world. Thus, out of compassion, they began to talk amongst themselves, for they themselves were the performers of the sacrifices. Text 8. When the great sages consulted one another, they saw that the people were in a dangerous position from both directions. When a fire blazes on both ends of a log, the ends in the middle are in a very dangerous situation. Similarly, at that time, the people in general were in a dangerous position due to an irresponsible king on one side and thieves and rogues on the other. Text 9. Thinking to save the state from irregularity, the sages began to consider that it was due to a political crisis that they made Vena king, although he was not qualified. But alas, now the people were being disturbed by the king himself. Under such circumstances, how could the people be happy? Text 10. The sages began to think within themselves. Because he was born from the womb of Sunitha, King Vena is by nature very mischievous. Supporting this mischievous king is exactly like maintaining a snake with milk. Now he has become a source of all difficulties. Text 11. We appointed this King Vena of the state in order to give protection to the citizens, but now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him. Text 12. The saintly sages continued thinking. Of course, we are completely aware of his mischievous nature. Yet, nevertheless, we enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes. Text 13. The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and then spoke as follows. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. So, Hare Krishna, everyone, once again. So we are continuing the topic of King Vena in the previous chapter, entitled The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. What we had seen was that after Dhruva Maharaj had ascended to Dhruva planet or pole star, his glories were being sung by Narada Muni in the assembly of Prachetas, a group of rulers, king's sons called Prachetas. They are numbered in 10. So when Maitreya said that these Dhruva Maharaj's glories were being sung by his own spiritual master in the assembly of Prachetas, then Vidura inquired Maitreya, so who are these Prachetas? Can you please kindly explain? And then at that time, Maitreya Muni then started to describe the lineage of Dhruva Maharaj. So after Dhruva Maharaj had ascended to the Vaikuntha planet, he had 2 sons, 1 daughter. Ila is 1 daughter, and 2 sons are Utkala and Vatsara. Looks like Utkala was the eldest, but however, he was not interested at all in administration. Not at all. He was deeply, deeply absorbed in devotion onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He appeared just like a fool for the fools. And he appeared very intelligent, like intelligent, like for intelligent people. So because he was not at all interested in spiritual, in ruling, in administration, then the sages and the ministers have decided to enthrone the younger son named Vatsara. Hmm? And that way the lineage was continuing. So, and it is mentioned Vatsara's son had other son, like that. So there were number of other kings were coming in that lineage of Vatsara. Vatsara was a son of Dhruva. So when he was describing Maitreya, then he said, oh, in this lineage, King Anga came, and King Anga had a cruel son named Vena. He was so cruel, and as a result of that, Anga had left the kingdom. And our Vidura got very much inquisitive and asked more information about what happened exactly, why King Anga, he was such a great devotee, very peaceful person, exalted king. How come he had a son, so cruel son? And you also mentioned that this cruel son was killed by the sages. And how is it possible that the sages could kill a king? Impossible to kill a king. How that is possible? So please kindly explain more, like explain in detail. So Vidura asked Maitreya, and then Maitreya said, yes. So unfortunately, King Anga didn't have a son. He performed a sacrifice, and through the sacrifice, on the sacrificial fire, there is a divine personality appeared, and that divine personality had given us sweet rice to the king. And with the permission of the saintly people, King Anga had fed this sweet rice to his wife named Sunita. Hmm? So, and Sunita was daughter of death personified. And that's why the son born took the behavior or quality of irreligion. Hmm? So, and King Vena's behavior was like, explained. Used to go to forest and kill animals unnecessarily, and while playing with his playmates, just like kill his friends, just like animals are killed in a slaughterhouse. He was so cruel. King Anga tried to correct him in many ways, but unfortunately he was not successful. That time Anga was ruling the kingdom, and he was not successful. Then king tried many ways to correct him, but however he was not successful. Then king thought, actually no son is better. Sorry, having no son is better than having a bad son. So, but I have a very bad son. And then a little later he decided, he had another thought. Actually, bad son is better than good son. Bad son is better than good son. Why? His explanation, his thought process, this is how devotees, we discussed this at a length in the previous class. That you just try to use that opportunity. Yes, I have bad son, what can I do now? Okay, bad son is better than a good son, in the way that we get detached from our family life, not automatically. So there is a detachment. The good son may increase your attachment to family life. That's how he thought. And one fine night, he decided to leave the kingdom, not knowing anyone. So he left. And after that, the sages, because there was no king, there is always disturbance. Always there should be a ruler. Without ruler, there will be problems. Governance, without governance, there will be a chaos in the subjects. And there will be rogues and thieves, etc., etc. The law and order must be there. So the sages have advised the citizens to go and find out whereabouts of King Anga. But unfortunately, they searched everywhere and they could not find Anga anywhere. And they came back, they reported back to the sages. That is the summary of previous chapter. And in this chapter, it is entitled The Story of King Vena. But the sages have decided now, because there is no ruler, there is a problem, isn't it? Always there is a ruler required. So without, ruler, there will be so many issues. And so they had this concern, sages. Those days, sages were like that, always thinking about the welfare of the common people. Always in the best interest of the common people. So then one day they decided, okay, the next, who is the option now? So Anga had left, so we are left with his son, Vena. We know he's mischievous, let's try anyway. Political crisis. This is a political crisis. we recently had a political crisis in UK. So in political crisis, they took permission of Queen Mother Sunita, and sages enthroned King Vena. One immediate good thing they observed was, because he was so cruel and so severe in his punishment, all the rogues and thieves were driven away from the city, or from the kingdom. But later, like within a short time, he became very arrogant, because he thought he is the supermost. When there is a power, because naturally he was not a good king, good person. So, and then he actually prohibited the religious activities. He said that don't worship anyone. There is no need to perform any sacrifice to please any demigod or Lord Vishnu. And he actually, sounded the kettle drums. Yes, sounded the kettle drums to stop all the religious activities. Yes, Arvind Prabhu, did you say anything? You wanted to say anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry, I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
So Maharaj King Anga, he was a devotee. Why did he leave? Is he not going against the principles, doing his duty as a king, looking after the people?
Yeah, it's a good question. Very good question. He definitely had the duty of ruling the people, but in front of him again, like he has to choose one, because his son was there. His son was so cruel, and what can be done? So he just decided to better leave anyway, and he was depending on Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, to sort out the situation. So how do you feel? Yes, you are so nice, and everybody is coming and complaining about your son. And if your son is trying to kill the playmates while playing, so how do you feel? So he was so good devotee, and he just decided, okay, he prayed to Lord Krishna and left in the hands, in the safe hands of the sages. Yeah, so yeah, we read the purport, verse 46. You can read the purport to 46 verse in the previous chapter, 4:13. He just took advantage of it and he just left it. But anyway, so you see, like, yeah, so it will, like, it will carry on anyway, you will see. And so, and because of this, prohibition of religious acts, then the sages decided, he's so powerful, he's so mischievous, is basically by asking us to stop all these spiritual religious acts, is actually blaspheming the Lord Vishnu. Because if you stop sacrifice, if you are blaspheming the Lord and Lord's devotees. So they decided, all the sages, they gathered, and seeing the atrocities, they considered, because they are not doing any ritualistic activities, there is also problems in the society also, they saw. Usually it is said that by pleasing the demigods and the Lord, your kingdom will flourish. That is the nature. In the Bhagavad Gita also it is there, Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu parasparam bhavayanta shreya paramavapsyada. By pleasing the demigods and Lord Vishnu, you will also be pleased. This is a mutual way we get benefit. So, seeing the danger, all the sages have assembled, and they decided, let's go and speak to him. Let's pacify. At least if we give good console, say for example, if someone is if someone is not behaving properly, and if we keep quiet, we also get a portion of, we also be incurred a portion of that sinful reaction on us. So if someone is misbehaving, at least the duty of sages is to advise them. So they decided, at least let's do our duty. Let's pacify him. Let's give him some good counsel. So they decided to go and pacify him. And also they've decided that if he doesn't listen, then we can kill him with our words. But let's give him some good counsel. And they had great anger, but they concealed their anger, and they tried to pacify King Vena. So let's, I think there is one thing that I wanted to read from this one, is text 12 purport. Okay, Meena Mataji, you can read the purport to text 12. Can't hear you.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Sorry. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Sorry. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. However, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. They used to be able to burn any sinful man to ashes by virtue of their spiritual prowess. Now, saintly persons have no such power due to the influence of the age of Kali. Indeed, the Brahmanas do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into a fire to attain a new life. Under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, saintly persons should engage in chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So Prabhupada advises, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not so powerful as they previously were. In the past days, olden days, they were very powerful, they were very pure, they could burn any sinful man into ashes by their virtue of spiritual power. So now in Kali Yuga, we don't have that. Proper advice is, given the current situation of Kali Yuga. So just, chant this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he advises by simply chanting this, everybody can be delivered. Okay. Right. So we will move on to the next section. So may I ask Arvind Prabhu? Are you there, Arvind Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Do you want to read?
Yes, please.
Yeah, from 14 to 28, please.
Text 14. The great sages said, Dear King, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. 15. Those who live according to religious principles and who follow them by words, mind, body, and intelligence are elevated to the heavenly kingdom, which is devoid of all miseries. Being thus rid of the material influence, they achieved unlimited happiness in life. The sages continued, O great hero, for this reason you should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of the general populace. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulent and royal position. 17. The saintly persons continued, when the king protects the citizens from the disturbances of mischievous ministers, as well as from thieves and rogues, he can, by virtue of such pious activities, accept taxes given by his subjects. Thus a pious king can certainly enjoy himself in this world as well as in the life after death. Text 18. The king is supposed to be pious, in whose state and cities the general populace strictly observes the system of 8 social orders of Varna and Ashram, and where all citizens engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupations. 19. O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the supersoul within everyone is worshipped, the Lord will be satisfied. 20. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods who are controllers of universal affairs. When he is satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, presiding deities of different planets, as well as the inhabitants of their planets, take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship. 21. Dear King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with the predominating deities, is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices in all planets. The Supreme Lord is the sum total of the 3 Vedas, the owner of everything, and the ultimate goal of all austerity. Therefore, your countrymen should engage in performing various sacrifices for your elevation. Indeed, you should always direct them toward the offering of sacrifices. Sorry, where am I reading to, Prabhu?
28, please.
28. When all the Brahmanas engage in performing sacrifices in your kingdom, all the demigods who are plenary expansions of the Lord will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired result. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods. 23. King Vena replied, You are not at all experienced. It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband, who maintains you, and are searching after some paramour to worship. Those who, out of gross ignorance, do not worship the king, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, experience happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. 25. You are so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Indeed, your affection for these demigods is exactly like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives all attention to her paramour. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Vayu, the master of air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kuvera, the treasurer, the moon god, the predominating deity of the earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of waters, and all others who are great and competent to bestow benedictions or to curse, all abide in the body of the king. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all demigods, who are simply parts and parcels of the king's body. King Vena continued, for this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities, you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no personality superior to me who can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So that's King Vena. So, yeah, sages went to give some good advice to King Vena. And basically, the summary was they said that, let everyone to continue this sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord and his devotees, demigods. That way your kingdom will flourish. And they also advised, Lord Vishnu is worshipped by great demigods, not just the human beings, but all the demigods worship him. He's like root. When you pour water on the root, what happens? The stem, branches, sub-branches, leaves, twigs, flowers, etc., etc. Everything will be nourished just by pouring water at the root of a tree. Similarly, by worshipping Lord Vishnu, everyone else will be pleased. Another analogy is also given. When we are hungry and we just have to feed the tummy. That's it. And all other bodily parts and our senses becomes active. Body gets nourished if you just feed the tummy. Similarly, the sages have advised King Vena, please consider worshipping the Supreme Lord. And King Vena, then out of arrogance, he said that you are less intelligent. You don't know. You are thinking something religious to be not religious and not religious to be religious. You don't know. I am I am that king. I am actually king is that supreme personality of Godhead. Your worship to these demigods is like a love of a wife to her paramour, unchaste wife. So you are unchaste. You don't know who to worship. The king actually is a representative of the supreme personality of Godhead. You should worship me. Stop worshiping anyone else. So he kind of again, he blasphemed the Supreme Lord, and he blasphemed the process of Vedic sacrifices. It is said that actually all the great demigods will actually reside in the body of a king, good king, not a bad king. Say, for example, we say, Guru is as good as God. But if Guru thinks I am God, then that Guru should be rejected, isn't it? Guru is as good as God, we say. But Guru never says that, stop worshipping Supreme Lord and only worship me. So, like that. So now let's see what the sages decided in the next section. Next section from 29 onwards, 29 till the end of the chapter. Maybe I can ask Padma Mataji if you are okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. Text 29. The great sage Maitreya continued, thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned. Text 30. My dear Vidura, all good fortune unto you. The foolish king, who thought himself very learned, thus insulted the great sages, and the sages, being broken-hearted by the king's words, became very angry at him. Text 31. All the great saintly sages immediately cried, kill him, kill him. He is the most dreadful, sinful person. If he lives, he will certainly turn the whole world into ashes in no time. Text 32. The saintly sages continued, this impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Text 33. But for King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kind of fortune and opulence? Text 34. The great sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decided to kill the king. The King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, without using any weapons, the sages killed King Vena simply by high-sounding words. Text 35. After all the sages returned to their respective hermitages, the mother of King Vena, Sunita, became very much aggrieved because of her son's death. She decided to preserve the dead body of her son by the application of certain ingredients and by chanting mantras, mantra yogena. Text 36. Once upon a time, the same saintly persons, after taking their bath in the river Saraswati, began to perform their daily duties by offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. After this, sitting on the bank of the river, they began to talk about the transcendental person and his pastimes. Text 37. In those days, there were various disturbances in the country that were creating a panic in society. Therefore, all the sages began to talk amongst themselves. Since the king is dead and there is no protector in the world, misfortune may befall the people in general on account of the rogues and thieves. Text 38. When the great sages were carrying on their discussion in this way, they saw a dust storm arising from all directions. This storm was caused by the running of thieves and rogues who were engaged in plundering the citizens. Text 39 to 40. Upon seeing the dust storm, the saintly persons could understand that there were a great deal of irregularities due to the death of King Vena. Without government, the state was devoid of law and order, and consequently, there was a great uprising of murderous thieves and rogues who were plundering the riches of the people in general. Although the great sages could subdue the disturbance by their powers, just as they could kill the king, they considered it improper on their parts to do so. Thus, they did not attempt to stop the disturbance. Text 41. The great sages began to think that although a Brahmana is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect poor humans. By such neglect, a Brahmana's spiritual power diminishes, just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. Text 42. The sages decided that the descendants of the family of the saintly king Anga should not be stopped, but in this family, the semen was very powerful and the children were prone to become devotees of the Lord. Text 43. After making a decision, the saintly persons and sages churned the thighs of the dead body of the king Vena with great force and according to a specific method. As a result of this churning, a dwarf-like person was born from King Vena's body. Text 44. This person born from King Vena's thighs was named Bahuka, and his complexion was as black as a crow's. All the limbs of his body were very short, his arms and legs were short, and his jaws were large. His nose was flat, his eyes were reddish, and his hair copper-colored. Text 45. He was very submissive and meek, and immediately after his birth, he bowed down and inquired, Sirs, what shall I do? The great sages replied, Please sit down, Nishida. Thus, Nishida, the father of the Naishada race, was born. Text 46. After his Nishida's birth, he immediately took charge of all the resultant actions of King Vena's sinful activities. As such, this Naishada clan are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, and hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and the forests. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Okay. So the sages simply uttering angry words, like that, with high-sounded words. They killed Vena. Just they did not use any weapon. Just high-sounding words they used. Kill him, kill him, kill him, like that. That's it. And they killed King Vena. Because they decided that he is thinking himself to be the supreme, and he he criticized the sages, and he stopped the sacrificial rituals to the demigods. And after that, the sages then because there was no ruler. So one day, after taking bath in the river Saraswati, while after discussing Krishna Katha, then they saw there was a dust storm in the country, and it was due to running of the thieves and plunderers in the country, because there is no law and order. So sages were always concerned in those days. You see, like in the beginning, after King Anga had left, when there was no ruler, they because of the political crisis, they worried, and they installed King Vena on throne. And when King Vena was misbehaving, and the sages went and tried to correct him and give him good advice. And when he was still not able to take the good advice, and then they decided to, finish him off. Always working in the welfare of the citizens. And then they decided, because after King Vena was dead, his mother Sunita, she was sorry, and she preserved the body of her son King Vena in special oils. And so then the sages, they decided, see, when there is a problem, if you as a Brahman or as a devotee of the Lord, if you don't try to address it, then you will also be part of that problem. In text 41, that's what they mentioned, isn't it? What did they say here? The great sages began to think that although a Brahmana is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect pure humans. By such neglect, a Brahmana's spiritual power diminishes. Yes. When there is an issue, when there is a problem, a devotee should try and speak up in an appropriate way. And it is said that just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. Our spiritual power also decreases. We see a problem there and someone is suffering and we keep quiet. Our spiritual power decreases. And so they thought, because they were so powerful, they decided that in this lineage, we know that Swayambhu Manu is a great devotee of the Lord. Swayambhu Manu's son Uttanapada, he was a great devotee as well. Uttanapada's son Dhromaraj, he was a great devotee, and all other kings, they were coming. Vatsara, Dhromara's son, and all other people. King Anga himself was a great devotee. So they decided, yes, in this dynasty, children are prone to become devotees. With the exception of this particular king, King Vena. We read why he was like that. So they decided to churn, and in the churning process, because if you look at the body of Vena, basically he was made up of Sunita and as well as Anga, combination of Sunita's portion and as well as Anga's portion. And Sunita, the mother of Vena, was coming from the irreligion side, isn't it? Her father was death personified. So they have the technique, those sages had the technique. So they wanted to separate the irreligious part of the King Vena body. He's dead. So then they started churning the body, churning the thighs of King Vena. And there is this one black dwarf-like personality appeared by the churning process. So this is that irreligious part of his body. Basically, they want to extract the irreligious part first, and that irreligious part of King Vena's body took the form of this Bahuka, this guy called dwarf guy named Bahuka. His complexion was as black as snow. His limbs of his body were very short, and his jaws were large. His nose was flat. His eyes were reddish, and his hair got the copper color. And he was submissive. And it is said, thus he became a father of Nishadha race. Nishadha, if you see that these people, they are not so cultured. They live in the forests, and they're not so cultured people. So this guy, Bahuka, became the father of Nishadha race. Let's read a little bit about this. And it is also said in the text 46, Nishadha class are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, and hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and forests. So let's read the purport to 46. Anupama Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The Nishadas are not allowed to live in cities and towns because they are sinful by nature. As such, their bodies are very ugly and their occupations are also sinful. We should, however, know that even these sinful men, who are sometimes called Kiratas, can be delivered from their sinful condition to the topmost Vaishnava platform by the mercy of a pure devotee. Engagement in the transcendental loving devotional service of the Lord can make anyone, however sinful he may be, fit to return home back to Godhead. One has only to become free from all contamination by the process of devotional service. In this way, everyone can be fit to return home back to Godhead. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Continue.
Or shall I continue? Okay, Prabhuji. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter of me, though they may be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Shudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of 4th Canto, 14th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Story of King Vena. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So here, Prabhupada concludes it very nicely. This person who was born out of churning the thighs of King Vena's dead body, he was a dwarf person. He looked a little bit ugly. And he became the father of Nishadas. These Nishadas, they are not allowed to live in the cities or towns. They are sinful by nature, so they're asked to live outside the city in general. Prabhupada is also mentioning that important point here, that anybody can be delivered and anybody can be elevated. Even the sinful man can be elevated. If they come in contact with a devotee, they become elevated. They can be elevated. They can be advanced in Krishna consciousness, just like Prabhupada. Many people in the West who were into all sort of nonsensical activities, and they became purified. They became gurus just because they came in touch with a saintly person like pure devotee like Prabhupada. So here Prabhupada is mentioning that however bad one may be, one can still be elevated to highest platform, and then go back to Godhead if they come in contact with the pure devotee. And Krishna says that O Sanapruta, whoever takes shelter of me, they are of low birth or higher birth or east or west, whoever it may be, they can achieve perfection. And that can be achieved by simply chanting Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada mentions many times in this chapter about the Hare Krishna mantra. So let's take this wonderful opportunity of chanting Hare Krishna mantra and be elevated in our devotion, because although this life is very short, but we can make advantage, a wonderful advantage. We can take good advantage of this body before it falls down. Some or other, before it falls down, we have to perfect our life. Once it falls down, we can't do anything. Before it falls down, we have opportunity to read regularly, hear regularly, take association of devotees regularly, perform wonderful spiritual activities. So Prabhupada always says that to take full advantage of Krishna conscious movement. He requests everyone, all of us, he always requests everyone to take full advantage, not just a partial advantage, but full advantage means fully becoming serious. As a devotee, we should have a regular training, a regular program. I wake up this time, I go to bed this time, I read this time, I worship this time, I take prasadam this time, I chant this time, like that. So we should have a program, because if you don't have a program, the mind gives us another program. So better to have our own program every day and follow that program and take as much association of devotees possible. And Krishna only sees the sincerity, nothing else really. We need not to be a great scholar or great person. Only thing is required our full sincerity to follow the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so in summary, so after King Anga's departure to the forest, sages decided to enthrone King Vena, King Anga's son, on the throne, because without law and order, without a ruler, without a king, there is no law and order in the society. So this decided to enthrone him, but he became so puffed up and he thought himself to be king. He thought himself to the supreme personality of Godhead, and he actually, stopped worship of Supreme Lord and demigods. And when the sages gave him advice, and King Vena said, "You are useless. You are intelligent. You don't know whom to worship. You should worship me. I am the supreme personality of Godhead." The sages decided to simply kill him by high-sounded words. Kill him like that. And later, after his death, again there was a problem in the country, because there was no ruler, and they decided to churn the body and take out the irreligious part of King Vena's body. And then they will churn again. In the next chapter, we will see wonderful personality, King Prithu and Archi. King Prithu is partial incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and Archi is Mother Lakshmi. So they come out of the body of King Vena. So we will discuss that story of Prithu Maharaj from next chapter onwards. I've lost to stop it here. Padma Mataji, yes?
Just one question, Prabhuji. You mentioned that if you see somebody suffering and you don't do anything about it, you might incur the negative, maybe to say karma or effects, reactions to it. So is this both for material and spiritual, or is it only if you see?
Yeah, good question. A good question. But you have to see whether ideally we should do even materially also. But if the people are not able to take advice, what can you do? If someone is suffering, then we should try and do our level best, whether it is materially or spiritually. In my view, in both aspects, if we know if there is a solution, and if we know that there is a way out, and then we should do our level best. But Prabhupada is saying that, for example, you can't go and give advice to the government these days or anything like that. So Prabhupada advises us to chant Hare Krishna mantra. But say, for example, if we are in a small community, and in small community, we see that there is an administrator who is not obeying the law set forth by the leader, say for Prabhupada in our movement, say for example, and we should try and do it, correct it. And if we are not in a position, then we should go to another senior devotee who has that power to correct that. But we should never keep quiet. That is what I also meant, because if we are keeping quiet, means we are indirectly encouraging that problem to keep going, keep happening. Even if you don't have power, we should approach the higher authority and inform accordingly.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Okay, so anything else, anybody? Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate for your continued attendance on this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam classes. Ujjwal Mani Mataji, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Andhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Payeva Chapati Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you for excellent.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Krishna willing, we shall see you next week.
Last time. Okay.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.